When you read in the jazz history books about the importance of a Louis Armstrong or a Charlie Parker or a John Coltrane, you learn about their harmonic or melodic developments. You might learn who their drummers were, but you don't learn about what the drummers contributed to the music. The drummers contributed just as much from a rhythmic standpoint, and in many cases, the harmonic and melodic developments could not have happened without those rhythmic developments. What I want to do in this video is two things. First, I want to talk about the importance of rhythm in jazz because there is a rhythmic accompaniment or rhythmic component to melody. You change how you play the melody, you're changing the rhythm. So how you change the rhythm affects how you play the melody. The second point I want to make is that when you do a drum solo, the drums should think in terms of the musicality of the piece rather than just rhythm or technique. This drum solo should reflect the rhythmic flow or the melodic structure of the song. You don't want to hear just technique as an end in itself. We'll hear more about that later. Now, jazz has all kinds of interesting influences. Jazz probably developed all over parts of the United States because of the different Afro-American influences, but New Orleans was the focus there, so we're going to concentrate on New Orleans. The drum set came out of the marching band, and the drum set actually happened when the Ludwig brothers in 1909 invented a proper bass drum pedal. So they took the bass drum and the snare drum and the cymbals and made it into so one person can play it. The first true jazz drummer is somebody called Baby Dodds. He wasn't the first person to play on the drums. All kinds of people were playing drums in dance bands. But he took these different rhythms and turned it into jazz, into its flow. Now, in order to understand that, I want to go back and talk a little bit about dancing and about two different traditions. There's the Euro-American tradition, and think of the Spanish dancing with the castanets and everything, and hear a rhythm. Think of the North African belly dancing. I'm going to give you some examples. It's exactly the same rhythm, but listen to how they sound differently. And here's the African version. You heard how those accents moved in different ways. That leads to that upper body and that middle body motion, which allows for that belly dancing. And that's what jazz is about, that Afro-American fluid forward motion kind of rhythm. Now, the same thing happened in New Orleans with these marching bands. They were the Euro-American and the Afro-American. I'm going to play a march beat and do the march beat the same two different ways. Now, first, here's the Euro version. Okay, now listen to the European or the Afro-American version now. Now, did you hear that difference? The different accents in that African version made you want to move your upper body and sway. And that's what's so important about the history of jazz, that loose, flowing motion. Jazz cannot be a stiff, rigid music. Okay, now, the first proper drummer, all kinds of people playing on the drums, but the first true jazz drummer is someone named Baby Dodds. He had the nickname Baby because he was the younger brother of Johnny Dodds, who played clarinet in the band. What Baby Dodds did was to take some of those march rhythms and adapt them. Whenever he played a song, on every song, what he played was different because he adapted the rhythm pattern to the song. He was always thinking of the rhythmic pattern of the song. What he did was called a press roll, to fill in the space. He would play a pattern with one hand and roll the stick on the other hand, and it sounded like this. And he took that and developed that into a whole jazz scene. So here's a very, very short clip of Baby Dodds demonstrating that. And now throughout this video, we're going to do demonstrations of this through duets here to demonstrate those styles. You're going to hear a vibraphone piece and me playing on the drums. And here's the first duet in the style of Baby Dodds. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.